In this video, I'm going to give an overview of a playlist that I've put together on project management. So we'll take a look at each of the individual pieces that we'll look at, or the chapters, if you will, in this playlist. It goes all the way from the fundamentals of Scrum and several tools we can use like GitHub projects and JIRA to waterfall with Microsoft Project, and then how we select projects. So we'll start with the consideration of Scrum. And we're thinking there, where is Scrum appropriate and where is it less appropriate? Scrum tends to be used where we have projects that have a lot of uncertainty, or projects where the requirements might change, or even projects that we don't know when they're going to end. Projects that could have a long tail. So we'll take a look at each of the Scrum ceremonies, and I have a little demonstration that I'll do of a sprint planning ceremony. And then after we've done the Scrum ceremonies and we understand what Scrum is and why we use it, we'll jump into several of the tools that we can use for Scrum. We're going to take a look at how we can go from requirements all the way down to code and verify that step using a bit of automation and a bit of connection. And this is really neat because we see that using something like behavior-driven design, everybody on the team can have input into the requirements. Then we take that and we use that to write a unit test. And then we do some test-driven design, which means we're going to write code to make the unit test pass. And then we can verify all of this with CI/CD. So you see here I have a GitHub repository with a storyboard and then several requirements. Each of those requirements are elaborated into a series of examples in given, when, then syntax. This is a syntax that everyone can understand, no matter what your role is on the team, and so everyone can contribute. Now, the neat thing is, you see this green checkbox here, and you see it's going to point us to Circle CI, CI/CD pipeline, or continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous integration, continuous delivery, development. That D can stand for some different things. But either way, it will take us into a pipeline here. And in the pipeline, we can see if we get a green check like this that says success, it means that our entire pipeline passed. And that pipeline will include things like building our project and also running the unit tests. Now keep in mind, those unit tests came from the given, when, then, which came from the requirements. So we can connect the dots all the way down, and just like in Scrum, how we like transparency and collective ownership, anyone can go in at any time and say, do the unit test pass yet? If they do, then that given, when, then is satisfied. When all the given, when, thens are satisfied for a requirement, then that requirement is satisfied. GitHub Projects is a newer entry to the project management field. Definitely has a lot of good use. One thing is, if you're doing kind of a skunkworks project with a couple of friends and you don't have a huge organization, it's really easy to set up GitHub Projects, and it's really easy to use as Scrum. Another thing is, guess what? It's integrated with your source code because it's GitHub. It's most likely where your source code already lives. Also, GitHub Projects has really good workflow automation. So we will take a look at projects here. You see, this is kind of like a simple project that I set up. Looks very much like a Scrum board. Nice thing about GitHub is there are multiple ways we can enter our data. We can enter it in a timeline view, much like we'll see in JIRA, where we can sequence different tasks with dates. Now, the magic here is when we come up here to more options and say workflows, and we see that it can listen for certain events that happen in the GitHub repository, things like requesting a code review is approved, code review is rejected, or ticket is closed, branch is merged, and it will automatically update our Scrum board based on that. That is really cool stuff. When you can automate things like that, less chance of human error and better chance of real-time information, and perhaps most importantly, more time for us to do what we want to do, which in this case might well be write some code. Now, when we consider Scrum, years ago, there were a lot of different tools that you could use for Scrum. There's Rally, Rational Rows, several others, and JIRA. Over time, I think JIRA has taken a bit of a dominant position in Scrum. It's one of those where the question is no longer what Scrum software do you use, but more detailed about how do you use JIRA. We'll take a look at several things in JIRA, like how to set up a timeline view, where we can create epics, which are big features we want to do, and then we can sequence those epics with predecessor and successor relationships. And we can put stories under those epics where those are what we're going to work on. We're going to take a look at the backlog, which is the work that we have pointed and we're ready to work on. And we're going to take a look at active sprints, which is whatever we're working on right now, in different status of to do and progress done. We could also add in review or a QA step or something like that. Next, we'll take a look at reports, which is what will give us a bit of information to help us plan our next sprint. We can take a look at things like the velocity report, which says, okay, what is the total number of story points we've accomplished in this last sprint? And we can take a look at a burn down chart, which says, okay, how much work are we doing in the current sprint? So here's a look at a velocity chart, what we committed to work on in this sprint and what we actually got done. Burn down chart, so this will show, okay, we started with about 27 points, it looks like, and it shows how we complete stories and we burn down those points. We might have to add something like a bug or something like that, and we'll get those points again. Now, one thing that is really cool about JIRA that really makes it stand out as an effective Scrum tool is the data are queryable. And so I'll show you how to set up a JIRA query within a Confluence page where you can do something like, okay, look at what a certain person has worked on in the last 14 days or so, or look at important tickets like big story point tickets that have had movement. This works out really well for everybody because as a project manager, you can get an idea of where the project is going in real time without interrupting anyone. And as an engineer working on a project, you have this information radiator that's up to date, so you're not likely to get bothered by a project manager asking you the status when the project manager can just see that. And that embodies the Scrum pillars of transparency and collective ownership. After looking at Scrum, we're going to take a look at waterfall, which is a project management methodology that has been around for a long time. It is ideal where you're looking for a project that is effectively repeatable and you want to look at ways to continuously improve the project. It's also ideal when you want to plan out something with a long budget or long timeline. So this is a fairly typical view of project. We have on the left our work breakdown structure with our work breakdown packages, or work packages, each of the individual items that we're going to do. And we can see a bit of reporting that we can do here based on cost, cost overrun, schedule overrun, and things like that to predict when our project will be complete, if it will be complete on time or ahead of time, or it'll be delayed or under budget, over budget, on budget. We can use a lot of tools here to help to figure that out because you see on the right, we have a Gantt chart which shows a sequence of events and where we have predecessors and where we have tasks that will happen after a task. So we set up a big dependency matrix. And you can see, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little dark line inside of these which shows a bit of progress. Now right now I'm looking at the earn value view, but we can also just look at the default view, which is this entry view, which is where we have each of our tasks, the duration, the start and finish, and then the predecessor task, so what is required before that's done, and then any resources that we want to put on that. And resource could be a human resource, a person doing something. It could also be a material that is consumed in our project. So if we're doing a landscaping project, it could be mulch, it could be topsoil, plants, or things like that, things that are consumed. And this will help us estimate out the cost. There's several other ways that we can look at cost as well. And that plays really well in several of these reports that we get in project, like cost overrun. And we can also take a look at resources and see where we have resources who might be overallocated. For example, back on the Gantt chart view, you can see this kind of red icon here indicates that we have someone assigned to a task and or multiple tasks, and it's over what that person would work in a week. So maybe it's it's more than 40 hours in a week or something like that. And then we can do some leveling to level out our project and be more realistic about its completion. After we've learned how to manage a project and the different ways that we can manage a project, we need to pick projects. And it's good to have more work than we can possibly do, because that means we have to be very selective, and we're only going to pick the projects that offer the highest return. So some considerations we need for this are things like net present value, where we consider, would I rather have $1 today or $1 in a year? Would I rather have $1 today or $1.05 in a year? Would I rather have $1 today or $2 in a year? And we consider that time value of money. The reason we like that is it gives us a common currency across all different projects that are going to have different revenue streams at different time. And then we can give them a financial evaluation. But we also know that financial evaluation might not be the only evaluation that we want to do. Let's consider other things. Are we fulfilling our mission? Are we building our employees? Are we growing our goodwill or our brand image with consumers? What about the non-financial considerations? And that's where something like balanced scorecard comes in handy, because we can take a look across several metrics, both those that are financial and those that are non-financial. So I hope you'll enjoy this playlist on project management. I really enjoyed putting it together, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you.